and you're very welcome along to Sportsday. I'm Sarah Mulkerrins. Coming up on the programme this evening. On the eve of the new Saudi-backed golf venture, the big-name players are taking part. They are being grilled over their participation.
If the money was right, is there any way you wouldn't play?
I don't need to answer that question.
World Cup celebrations begun. Wales are back in action in the Nations League with a tricky tie at home to Netherlands. And just 3 months after giving birth, cyclist Eleanor Barker talks to us about making the Wales team for the Commonwealth Games. You're very welcome along to Sportsday. Is this the eve of a new era for men's golf? The controversial Saudi-backed series gets underway tomorrow, and today more reports of yet more big-name players signing up. Bryson DeChambeau, a former US Open champion, Patrick Reed, a former Masters champion, and Ricky Fowler, all lined up to join the likes of Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson. The Live Invitational Series has been dogged with questions over where its money is coming from and also how it threatens the current structures in the game. There have been threats of sanctions and bans of forfeiting future Ryder Cup's hopes for anyone who has signed up. There is a huge sense that golf is at a significant crossroads. So let's speak to the BBC sports editor Dan Roan, who is at the Centurion Club where the event will take place. Dan, there seems to be developments almost every hour, every day on this story. We're nearly there at this getting underway, and today yet more names potentially signing up.
Absolutely, Sarah, yes. And you've mentioned some of those names, Bryson DeChambeau, Patrick Reed, two of the most controversial and talked about players, I guess, in world golf, both major winners. It's something of a turn of events, this, when it comes to DeChambeau, because he'd suggested in recent weeks that he was going to stay with the PGA Tour and that this wasn't the right moment for him to branch out into this new venture. But yes, his agent has appeared to suggest that the reports are true and that he has signed up. There's due to be an announcement, I understand, before the end of this three-day event, which gets underway tomorrow here at Centurion Club. There was a Pro-Am event a little earlier on where some of the big names had an opportunity to have a practice, and it really is becoming very real now. And of course, with all of these new signings, and you mentioned Ricky Fowler as well, there's this growing sense of momentum, and I suppose the more players that do join up, more will follow, and that will be very ominous indeed for the established bodies in world golf, such as the PGA Tour, of course. We've already seen the likes of Dustin Johnson, for example, quit that tour. He's resigned to avoid being suspended. There's talk of sanctions for those who take part in this breakaway rebel competition, and potentially legal action as well if they then claim their right to trade is being restrained. This could get very ugly indeed, Sarah, very toxic and very divisive. Talking of Johnson, well, he's the top-ranked player so far to sign up. Former two-time major winner, of course, former world #1 as well. He's reported to be earning a staggering £120 million, would you believe, to be part of this 8-match series. That's before any prize money he may win, which is also at record levels. I had the opportunity to speak to him and ask him why he was taking part and whether it was worth the cost.
You know, for me, obviously I've played on the tour for a long time. I love the PGA Tour. You know, I'm very thankful for everything that, you know, it's done for me in my life, and, you know, this is just kind of a new chapter, and, you know, I felt like this was just what was best for me and my family, and, you know, what I'm trying to do, which is be at home more and spend more time with the kids and Paulina, you know. So, you know, talking with my team and everyone about it, you know, it's just something that we felt was best for me.
And finally, what do you say to those who would argue you're allowing yourself to be used for Saudi PR, given the concerns over human rights controversies in that country and the source of the funding? What's your response to those concerns?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I'm a professional golfer, and, you know, this is just an opportunity to play golf on a world stage, you know, just like, you know, if I was playing on the PGA Tour. So, you know, response to that, is just, I'm here to play golf and enjoy it and have a good time, and I think and try to grow the game across the world.
Dustin Johnson there. Interesting, Dan, to pick up on that last answer, because it is a question that all players are being faced with. And it's also, it's been quite tense, hasn't it, in a lot of those press conferences?
I think that's inevitable, Sarah, yes. And it's not really what a lot of these guys are used to, I don't think. And they're suddenly being tasked with answering pretty difficult questions from us in the media about geopolitics and ethics and the morality of taking part in a competition which the critics argue is the latest attempt, the latest example by Saudi Arabia through their sovereign wealth fund, PIF, who also, of course, own Newcastle United, to invest in global sport as a means of furnishing the country's reputation and distracting away from its poor human rights record, and they're having to explain themselves, and it can be very uncomfortable on occasions. And on top of that, of course, they have to also deal with questions as to why they're doing it, given that they're already mostly very wealthy. Not all here, of course, but the big names are, and that they face the prospect of being ruled out, for example, of the Ryder Cup. Even people like Ian Poulter and Lee Westwood, who are so associated with that competition and could be captains in the future, as Dustin Johnson has admitted, this effectively rules them out, as the rules stand, of taking part in that wonderful competition in the future. And they face allegations of greed, of course, and being prepared to be used as effectively a PR stunt by the Saudis. Now, we'll come to the other side of the debate in a moment, but we'll hear from Poulter and Westwood now. But first, before them, Phil Mickelson, who, you may remember, Sarah, has just returned from a self-imposed 4-month exile from the game after he made very controversial comments about the Saudi backers of this event, calling them scary. That was back in February. He also had some criticisms of the PGA Tour, accusing it of obnoxious greed, as he put it. He then went into hiding, effectively, left the game, left the public spotlight for several months. In the nick of time, he's just, would you believe it, appeared again in time to play in a tournament that is reported to be netting him, would you believe, around $200 million. As the most famous name, effectively the jewel in the crown, really, of this event. Here's what he had to say, along with Westwood and Poulter.
I don't condone human rights violations at all. I don't think nobody here does, throughout the world. And I'm certainly aware of what has happened with Jamal Khashoggi, and I think it's terrible. I've also seen the good that the game of golf has done throughout history. And I believe that Live Golf is going to do a lot of good for the game as well.
Lee and Ian, is there anywhere in the world you wouldn't play? If Vladimir Putin had a tournament, would you play there?
That's speculation. Not even going to comment on speculation.
So, just in a generality, is there anywhere you wouldn't play on a moral basis? If the money was right, is there anywhere you wouldn't play?
I don't need to answer that question.
Sorry?
I don't need to answer that question.
Lee, do you want to answer it? Would you have played in apartheid South Africa, for example?
Well, you're just asking us to answer a hypothetical question there, which...
Well, they're moral questions, aren't they?
Answer a question on that.
Yeah, you really get a sense of the atmosphere there, Dan. Has there been any word then from the Saudi back side of things?
Well, the counter-argument that they put forward, Sarah, is that this is an innovative format. It's condensed, it's shorter, it's played over 3 days, there's no cut, there's a shotgun start, so players all begin simultaneously, so the playing day is much shorter. There's live music, maybe see behind me in the distance, the stage, there's lots of innovations around the place. You're not playing for world ranking points. And it's the latest example, isn't it, of a sport trying to improvise, to challenge the established order. And they believe this is about growth as much as it is about greed. They say this is a way of attracting new audiences to the game and shaking golf up after a period of time in which they say it's in need of that. Now, I had a brief opportunity to speak to Yasser Al Rumayyan. Now, he is the governor of PIF, the Saudi investment fund, sovereign wealth fund that's backing this tournament. And of course, they are also now the owners of Newcastle United, having taken over the club last year. He's chairman of Newcastle United as well. He hasn't spoken publicly since taking over the club, but he arrived here earlier today. He's a very keen golf enthusiast, and in fact, he played alongside Mickelson in the opening Pro-Am of the day. And here is what he had to say when I asked him a couple of questions about this tournament. Mr. Aubameyang, hello, sir. Dan Rowan, BBC News. Can I just ask you about this tournament? There's been criticism, of course, about it. People saying it's sports washing, but what can it do for golf, do you think?
It's the big thing in golf, and we're going to enjoy it. That's why I'm here. Yeah. I'm going to play the Pro-Am, and I'm going to have a lot of, hopefully, fun playing with like 5 or 6 players. Thank you very much.
Can I just ask you very quickly about these suggestions of sports washing? What do you say to that? What's your response?
I'm really not sure about this terminology.
So Yasser Al-Rumayyan then, as you couldn't see, Sarah, not commenting on these claims that this is effectively an attempt by the Saudi authorities to sports wash their image. Away from the formal public comments, they're insistent that this is a genuine attempt to shake up the game. And that they believe it's a good investment as well, and that they can make money from it. And I guess the more of these big name signings there are, perhaps the more realistic that becomes. Having said that, there are doubts over just how popular this will prove with audiences. There's been concerns over a lack of ticket sales here this week. It's not on any mainstream television output, this event, not so far. It's going to be streamed, so it remains to be seen to what extent this does shake up the game, but there's no doubt it's proving very divisive, even at this early stage.
Absolutely. Dan Rowan, the BBC Sports Editor, live at Centurion Club for us. Thank you. Football now, and Wales will have to move away from World Cup celebration mode tonight as they are back in action, this time in the Nations League, and they will be taking on a very tricky team in Netherlands. We saw the joyous scenes in Cardiff on Sunday as they reached a first World Cup in 64 years, and bearing in mind what the players have been through, manager Robert Page is expected to make several changes. Thomas Dafford has more for us.
3 days on from some incredible scenes here at the Cardiff City Stadium when Wales finally clinched a place at the World Cup finals for the first time since 1958. Well, it's back to business tonight. That's the message from the manager, Rob Page. It's the Netherlands in the Nations League who are hoping to extend a 10-game unbeaten run. The former Manchester United manager Louis van Gaal has yet to taste defeat in his third spell in charge of his national side, and Rob Page says he's relishing the challenge to go head-to-head with him.
He's an absolute legend, isn't he? And his record speaks for itself. I think he's turned them round. I thought they were on a bit of a sticky patch until he's taken over again. And I think the record is there for everybody to see at the moment. They've had a great result and performance against a very good Belgium team. I watched the game back yesterday, so we've got it all out to get a result. But like I've said, we'll roll our sleeves up. We'll have a go. There'll be a team selected to go and get a result.
Yes, that Netherlands victory, a 4-1 win over Belgium on Friday. As for Wales, well, we're expecting some changes tonight. That could present an opportunity for the forward Brennan Johnson. What a few days he's had. He has achieved promotion to the Premier League with Nottingham Forest and now World Cup qualification, all in the space of just 8 days.
It's unbelievable. I think it's everything I wanted at the start of last season, to play in the Premier League and to be able to go to a major tournament with Wales, and luckily next year hopefully I can do both. I mean, I've still got to impress the Forest to get on the plane because there's a good squad and anyone can really get on there, but yeah, the thought of doing that is really exciting.
It promises to be a tough night for Wales here tonight. They've lost all 8 previous meetings with the Netherlands, the most recent back in 2015, a 3-2 defeat here at the Cardiff City Stadium.
Well, elsewhere, Scotland face Armenia in the Nations League at Hampden Park tonight, a week on from the defeat to Ukraine that ended their dreams of a World Cup place. Manager Steve Clarke is keen for them to move on quickly from that disappointment, hinting that changes to his team will be made as they try to find some form again.
I think with the way the calendar's structured now, there's not so many friendly games. There's no real chance to, what you would say, experiment. Obviously, we had some friendlies in March, which was unusual. Usually in these games, I've always said I've got a really good squad and I enjoy the squad. I think there are people in the squad that deserve a chance to play over the next 3 games, and hopefully you'll see that.
And you can follow those games right across the BBC later this evening. Now let's have a quick look at some of the day's other football news. And Liverpool have rejected a second bid of £30 million from Bayern Munich for Sadio Mane. The Senegal striker has scored 120 goals for Liverpool since arriving from Southampton in 2016. He'll be out of contract next summer. Chris Kirchner's attempt to buy Derby County is in danger of collapsing. BBC Radio Derby say he has failed to close the deals and funds promised to pay wages have not arrived. The American businessman still insists the takeover will happen. The start of the trial of Sepp Blatter and Michel Platini has been delayed by a day after Blatter said he was too ill to testify because of chest pains. The pair were due to go on trial on Wednesday accused of fraud, which they both deny. The Isle of Man TT race organisers have confirmed that they named the wrong French sidecar competitor to have died in an incident on Saturday. In a statement, they said rider César Chanal had now been confirmed as having died in the crash. On Saturday, they wrongly said passenger Livio Lavarelle had died. He remains in a critical condition in Aintree Hospital in Liverpool. Both competitors' families have been informed, and organisers say a thorough review of the processes relating to the identification of competitors will take place in due course. Yorkshire's former head coach Andrew Gale has won an unfair dismissal claim against the club after he was sacked in the wake of the Azim Rafiq racism scandal. Gale was one of 16 members of the staff dismissed by Yorkshire over the winter. A judge has now found that 6 of those employees have a well-founded case against the county. Our reporter Patrick Geary has more.
Well, Gale and 5 other employees who were sacked by Yorkshire have chosen to take the county to an employment tribunal, and a judge at that tribunal has ruled that their cases are well-founded. Now, Yorkshire say that all 16 of the sackings they made in the wake of the Azim Rafiq racism scandal were justified. They do acknowledge the judge's finding that no disciplinary process was followed. They say they're accepting that in order to reduce the amount of time taken up by these tribunals. So the next step is to find a remedy. That might come in the form of an agreement between the employees and Yorkshire, or it might take a new hearing. Either way, the fallout from what happened last winter in Yorkshire could last well into this summer.
Well, staying with cricket, and the legendary India batter Mithali Raj has announced her retirement from the international game. The 39-year-old retires as the all-time leading run scorer in women's one-day internationals with 7,805 runs at an average of over 50. She scored a century on her ODI debut at just 16. She also remains India's highest run scorer in women's T20 internationals, having retired from that format in 2019. Raj is also the only India captain, male or female, to have led the side in 2 World Cup finals. OK, let's have a quick look at some other stories making the sports news today. Dan Evans is through to the quarter-finals of the Nottingham Open after a straight-sets win over Italian Thomas Fabiano. Evans is still yet to drop a set in Nottingham. He comfortably raced to victory, taking the second set 6-love. Things didn't go so well for fellow Brit Heather Watson, though. She was beaten in straight sets by Victoria Golubic of Switzerland. She won 7-5, 6-1 to reach the quarter-finals. Anthony Joshua's rematch against Alexander Usyk is likely to be held on the 20th of August in the Middle East. Ukrainian Usyk beat Joshua on points last year to claim the WBO, IBF and WBA titles. And fast bowler Ollie Robinson is unlikely to play for England until the Test series against South Africa in August because of an ongoing back issue. Robinson was not selected for the first Test against New Zealand. Now, today marks just 50 days to go until the Commonwealth Games get underway in Birmingham, and no doubt we will be reporting on some amazing stories and feats during it. And while cyclist Eleanor Barker may well be featuring because she has made the Wales team just 3 months after giving birth to her son, Nico. Barker won Commonwealth gold in the points race back in 2018, and she has been speaking to Tom Brown.
It's been quite hard going, I think, getting back into training and trying to build my fitness back up. And not under any illusions that I'm the same athlete that I was a year ago at this point in time, but I definitely feel like I'm getting back to my usual self and feeling all right on the bike, actually. I didn't ride a bike at all for a month after Nico was born, and that was just kind of medically just a no-go. And from there, it was really, really gradual. So I started off, I think my first session was literally 5 minutes. That was all I was allowed to do, and I had to have a day off the next day to make sure that everything was all right and that I hadn't caused myself any kind of damage or anything. And then after that, I was allowed to do, I think, 15 minutes. And then I had to have 2 days off. And it kind of slowly progressed that way, which I found really frustrating, to be honest, because getting kitted up for 5 minutes just doesn't feel worth it. But very quickly, that's kind of increased week by week until I think probably next week, maybe the following week, I feel like I'm actually at a normal training week in terms of hours. Maybe not a huge training week, but a fairly normal training week.
And it's all very well talking about coming back to training and returning to the bike after giving birth, but of course, you now also have your son to look after as well. You've got a 3-month-old baby in tow for a lot of this. How have you balanced being a mum with also then, being an elite cyclist again?
It's been a crash course in being organised, to be honest. And then sometimes it's been a crash course in accepting that I can't arrange when he's going to be sick all over himself and me, and simultaneously poo all up his back, and all these kind of disasters that happen just as you're about to leave the door. So I'm kind of learning to be as organised as possible, but also as relaxed as possible. But to be honest, we've got a lot of support around us, and my friends and family have been phenomenal, as have British Cycling, Welsh Cycling, and my road team. So I think having all of that support around has just made it so much easier to balance all those things.
Eleanor Barker there. Tiffany Youngs, the wife of former England and Leicester hooker Tom, has died. She was diagnosed with lymphatic cancer in 2014, prompting Tom to step away from England's tour of New Zealand to care for his wife. Her brother-in-law Ben Youngs also opted not to tour with the British and Irish lines in 2017 to spend time with family. Leicester say they were deeply saddened by the news. A national charity says disabled people feel left out of the UK's sporting COVID recovery. The Activity Alliance has spoken to nearly 2,000 people for its annual activity survey and has found that disabled people are feeling forgotten.
The findings really are troubling, and it gives us the evidence to demonstrate that while there is considerable activity building back from COVID, disabled people are feeling left behind and not necessarily built into this kind of building back environment for sport and activity. I think there's 4 key actions that we're really calling across the sector to make happen, and that's about involving disabled people in the decisions that they're making around bringing back activity. That's about supporting disabled people to feel like they're included as the sector recovers. Ensuring that the workforce can be really inclusive and support disabled people in activity. And for us, it's something that's been echoed a few years now about making sure that healthcare professionals could be built into those conversations as well, because we know that disabled people really do trust healthcare professionals.
Now, finally, on Sportsday, it has been some year for British judoka Lucy Renshaw. Her first appearance at the Olympics last summer didn't quite go to plan after being eliminated in the first round, but she is one to keep an eye on for Paris 2024 after just being made world #1 in the 63-kilo category. I spoke to her about that achievement and her plans for a big year ahead.
It's amazing. Like, it's been a dream and a goal of mine since I was young, but especially at the start of this year, me and my coach Jamie, we wrote down some goals, and world #1 was always a top goal to reach, and reaching it, it's just such good news. Like, we worked so hard back at the National Training Centre, and I've been there for 9 years now, so to come out world #1 it's a dream come true, really.
And what does it mean for British judo as well? Because it's the first world #1, isn't it, since Natalie Powell back in 2017. What do you think it means to everybody involved?
I think it's just amazing news. It shows that what we're doing back at the National Training Centre, it's really working. We haven't had a world #1 for 5 years now since Natalie. So I think it gives not just me, but the whole team some confidence going forwards, because if I can do it and I'm based at the National Training Centre, why can't all the team do that?
And in terms of you, Lucy, in terms of what you're doing now and the confidence that being world #1 will give you, talk us through this year, because I understand qualification for the Paris Olympics are going to start in the next month or so, isn't it?
Yeah, so going into the next events, which is my first qualifying event for the Olympic Games, I'll be seeded #1 now, so it should help out a little bit with the draw. And it's a really big confidence boost going into a competition world #1. It doesn't get much better than that. So it's just really backing myself, and I know that now I can do it.
Yeah, I always wonder that about athletes, how much that, previous performance and experience breeds success down the line. I know you competed in Tokyo, got to the round of 32, but you've been obviously competing on the circuit as well and getting wins on the Grand Slam circuit kind of consistently now. And I wonder how much that affects your progress and your hopes for Paris then.
Yeah, it really makes me be in a good place mentally, to know that I'm doing so well right now, so I can continue doing well. But I think it helps. We've got such a strong women's team who I'm training with day in and day out, and we all push each other really hard at the National Training Centre. And at competitions, it's really good. I always fight on the second day, so it's really good seeing some success from the first day from the first athletes, and it really boost the morale around the team. So it really does help in competition.
So world number one, Lucy, what's next?
So I've hit one goal, but I've still got a few goals to hit. So I'm waiting to see if I've qualified for the Commonwealth Games, and that would be a goal of mine, and then the World Championships towards the end of the year.
I'm sure she will, Lucy Rentschel there. That is it from us here on Sports Day. For me and all the team, have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.